psychology just ties a lot of the biological aspects, like the chemical processes in your brain, um, chemical processes in
Right.
life that affect your brain, like that, whether it's directly or indirectly. Um, and it really just like combines how that affects your social capabilities, how that
Right.
affects how your social capabilities affect that as well.
Okay.
So it's whereas I don't know, like so sorry, I call it soc.
Yeah, you're fine.
Sociology is generally very much a tool to use in order to not necessarily solely define terms, but define the processes that you see
Mm-hmm.
and that have affected a society that you it's just kind of like something that you understand that you don't actually think about. So it's
Right.
like I don't know, it's the fact that housing today, like if you look at a racial dot map across the United States, housing is 100% like not 100%, but very, very, very segregated. And it's because of things that happened in the past. And it's not that it's necessarily like enforced today,
Right.
but because of how things were done in the past, how certain legislation was, how certain um, companies were run when society was developing, they stuck around, you get stuck in a cycle, and then sociology kind of analyzes that, not necessarily how the history affects it, but how people respond to things like that.
That's a good
And
assessment.
solutions we could potentially employ
Right.
is the solutions is not what they stress, but that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm trying to work on because that's what
Right.
I want to do. I slash potentially may go to law school. We'll see.
I got you.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
my boss and I, we've had definite conversations on that aspect. You know, the psychology of racial segregation and racism in 2019, whereas our generation hasn't really seen so much actually happening in front of us. Whereas his generation did. He kind of grew up with that. That's the cultural norm for him. And we he kind of enlightened a few things when we were talking to me about how although there isn't a lot going on right now in our generation 2019, there still is that pre-psychological burden that was brought up and that translates still
Yeah.
into this this cultural of society today. So for example, even though someone might not have experienced slavery at like directly, their ancestors did. So like so someone's grandfather did, and that psychology could have transferred out depending on how you teach somebody, how you raise them, how you interact with them. That whole psychology can affect someone's upbringing and then in turn trickles down to the next generation. So we're actually combating these things right now.
Exactly.
So
And I
I
talk a lot about that because, like, with the whole patriarchal society,
yeah.
how that translates, but now how, whatever, women are perpetuating it a lot behaviorally because we are so socialized to just live that way to where I don't know, it's similar to a lot of other things that, oh, sorry,
You're fine.
that I've like have to realize that a lot of the expectations and a lot of the standards that we live by, like in our society now, were not things that we necessarily consented to. Like the expectations that were set for me, like since I have been an adult, I had already set them before then, before I was actually reasonably capable of developing those ideas and those thoughts for myself. And so like that's how it happens. Like I'm not saying that that's a terrible thing. That's how life works. But because of that, I've had to go back and just think through all of the expectations that I set for myself
Hmm.
and which ones do I agree with and which ones do I not think are valid for me.
Well, I
You
think
know,
that's the whole point of society and culture as in general because when you think of culture, I think a lot of people want to tear down these preconceptions of what culture is. And it's like, hold up, wait a minute. If we tear that down, then you'll have to think of all these rules for yourself, and that's not any better than what we already have.
Yeah.
You know, I think the idea of culture is to generate a I guess, a predicated way of living without having to exert a lot of cognitive energy. And that's important. Unlearning is a major part of adulthood. Hey, Dale, you're still sticking around. And hey, Jordan, welcome back. But, so that's what I kind of come to, is that whole idea that, you know, culture is good to an extent when you understand and you have the cognitive ability to evaluate what works for your life and what doesn't work for your life. And in turn, also evaluate, although it might not work for your life specifically, it works for somebody else's life. So I think we all have to be aware of the value that culture has on our own individuality or collectivism, for that fact.
I would agree. I just think that as a society, we are struggling more and more to break those cycles. So things that like norms that are from thousands of years ago, not necessarily to the same degree, obviously, but at the same time, norms from that long ago are still enacted in some ways today. And like they like show through, even though that's not what the actual like belief system is.
Right.
But because of how innovative and technologically advanced and how large our population is, it takes so long to break any kind of cycle like that. So at this point, we have grown so much and advanced so much that we are now realizing like all of these things that, okay, we're getting too big to have this. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, at this point, like, look at women's rights. Women's rights is too big to have a lot of issues with the patriarchal society that we have, but people are still having these problems that shouldn't be as large as they are based on what the actual views are that are present in the generation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like, I don't know, society's been on an upward kind of... My cat is on her scratch post, and I was like, who the fuck is here? There should be.
That's funny. So I have a question.
God. So go ahead.
All right. So we talked about the patriarchy and the matriarchy a little bit. Do you think that... how do I phrase this without sounding like a...
It was. Are you just gonna say, do I think that women should be in power? Like it
No.
should be a matriarchy?
No. I think
No.
your mic's breaking up. Say it again.
Oh, it is?
No, you were fine. It just chopped in and out for a second there.
Okay. No, go ahead. What were you gonna ask me?
All right. So what I was going to ask is, all right. So I'm reading this book, and it's called The Art of Power, and then along with it talks about the art of seduction. So there is... The Art of Seduction is a great book if anybody hasn't read it. But basically it talks about seduction as an art form, obviously the title. I don't know why I just said that. But anyways, but it mainly originated from women. Like, women developed the art of seduction because men were more upfront with their power tactics. Men were strong. Men were, forthcoming with whatever they needed, and they were able to take control physically.
No, men never felt like they needed to win it. They felt like they could take it if they wanted it.
So
it wasn't something they had to, like, whatever, weasel their way into. You know what I mean?
Right. And so the book talks about...
Tactic.
Yeah, so the book talks about how... Great book. Oh, you've read it? Yeah, it's a fantastic book. But the book talks about how women have developed this art form to basically weave their way into power. And it's a powerful technique. And, I mean, Julius Caesar was seduced by Cleopatra.
Yup.
And so, I mean, there's a saying that behind every great man is an even better woman.
Catherine the Great, wild. Literally, Catherine the Great. Just side note, weird facts that I know. Catherine the Great, literally, her mom got her married to like the king of like Russia, maybe. I don't know. I don't know country. I don't know which country. I don't know. Okay, either way, her mom got like talked to this king or whatever and was like, "Hey, like my daughter like needs a husband," and
Right.
she was princess of some German colony or Polish colony or something. And then she goes, they get married. The dude's like, "You're ugly," and she literally like develops like an entire like harem of men that
Yeah.
like just she's got. And yeah, very powerful woman, proud of her, but at the same time like,
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. Is like there's power aspects in that because
oh
a
yeah.
woman can literally control a man's actions. I mean, that's the whole problem with the incel movement right now that's going on. There's like a fight back against. I don't understand the incel movement at all. I think it's just a bunch of horny dudes that really can't get anything. And I'm not trying to piss anybody off, but
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah,
involuntary celibacy.
that doesn't.
Well, no, for real. Like it's a bunch of dudes that literally like hate on women, and I have this app called iFunny, and if anybody knows what iFunny is, it's just a meme app, and people can comment on memes. And as I go through the memes, there are sometimes memes with girls that women have produced, and it's funny, but
Girls that women have produced.
sorry, it's a meme that women have produced.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
Girls and boys women produced.
Yeah. But when you scroll down into the messages, you'll see that a lot of these people, a lot of these incels are basically like, women aren't funny, women can't be funny, they should just go back to the kitchen. I'm like, all right, I get it's a joke, but like literally this is on every single post that women have made, and it's like there's growing support for this incel movement. I'm like, dude, you're just horny, you just need to get laid, bro.
It's one of those things where